Welcome to Theology Explained for Beginners. Our new topic is spiritual growth, and this is part 1. As we discuss the topic of spiritual growth, keep in mind that this journey is a journey of faith as well as a journey of love. There are 3 stages in the spiritual growth: purgative, illuminative, and so purgative is the first stage. This is followed by illuminative, and the final stage is called the unitive stage. As we have said earlier, we must keep in mind as we explain each of these stages that this journey is a journey of faith and a journey of love. The 2 saints that we will be discussing when we talk about the spiritual growth are Saint John of the Cross and Saint Teresa of Avila. Part 1 of spiritual growth will discuss the teachings of Saint Teresa of Avila, and part 2 of spiritual growth we will be discussing the teachings of Saint John of the Cross. Between asceticism and mysticism, asceticism, which is spiritual growth through human effort, while mysticism, which is spiritual growth with a greater involvement of the supernatural, and it receives help from God. Our 2 saints, Saint Teresa and Avila and Saint John of the Cross, belong to mysticism. Saint Teresa of Avila. Avila is actually a town, an ancient town in Spain. It is walled. It is actually a ancient medieval walled city, and these are some pictures of the churches found inside of Avila. One of the churches in Avila is particularly connected with Saint Teresa of Avila. Going inside this church, one may be able to see her remains there in front of the church. Saint Teresa of Avila is known for her famous saying, "Solo Dios basta," which means God alone suffices. These are some of the relics of Saint Teresa: her bed where she slept, and also her shoes. So in this picture, we see a first-class relic of Saint Teresa of Avila. She was actually born in 1515, but as you can see, you have here an incorrupt body part of Saint Teresa of Avila. On the left side, you can see her arm, and on the right side is her incorrupt heart. Teresa of Avila was known for her work entitled The Interior Castle. This work describes the 7 mansions or 7 dwelling places that each represents a step towards unity with God. So there are 7 steps or 7 places that or mansions that a person will go through as this person grows spiritually towards God. So it starts with the first mansion, and goes to the 6 other mansions until finally there is mystical union with God in mansion number 7. So to understand spiritual growth, let's take a look at this simple diagram so that we can know where we come from and where we are headed. So God is there in heaven and we are here at the bottom. We come from here at this fallen state. We are here because of sin. God sent his son Jesus, and Jesus has given up his life for us. He sacrificed his life and died for us on the cross. So we were taken out from this fallen state and we were justified by Jesus, and we received this justification in our baptism. But it's not only justification, there is also a process of sanctification. God is making us holy. Here in the process of sanctification, we are to live our life obeying the law of love, which is love of God and love of neighbor. Also in this particular stage, we also this is where we see the three stages: the purgative, illuminative, and unitive. This is, um, as you can see, the journey towards God from purgative and then illuminative and then unitive. Now, let's discuss first this part of the fallen state of man. According to the description of Saint Teresa of Avila, when a person is in the outer court, the person is in a state of mortal sin. The person has no sanctifying grace and has no ongoing relationship with God. There are varying degrees of being separated from God. The lesser form is ignorance. A person, because of ignorance, has been separated from God. There are also other forms, weakness. Because of weakness, this person is separated from God. Now, as we go down, the most severe form or the most far away from God is caused by the diabolic malice. Now, let's go to the inner court. So, we have here the seven mansions uh, in the interior court. The first three are part of the purgative stage. The person starts with faithful souls. They are in mansion number one. The souls are called faithful souls. In mansion number two, they are called the good souls. In mansion number three, they are called the pious souls. Before the person is able to go through to mansion number four, the person first experiences a night of the senses. We will discuss all of these one by one. Now, in mansion number four, the souls are called fervent souls. In mansion number five, they are called relatively perfect souls. And these two, they are in the stage of what we call illuminative stage. Now, before we mention the unitive stage, a person from mansion number six, which is called the heroic souls, before these heroic souls enter the seventh mansion and become the great saints, they undergo a night of the spirit. Great souls, great saints, and heroic souls are part of the stage of what we call the unitive stage. Now, the night of the spirit and the night of the senses, they are called by Saint Teresa as the dark night. So these are the characteristics of the three stages. The purgative is the beginning stage. The focus is on avoiding mortal sin. Undergoing purification is taking place. There is a disordered attachment. The person is still attached to self, to others, to things, to animals, and there is an awareness of sin, sorrow for the past, and yet avoiding mortal sin. This is the stage of the purgative stage. Now, in the proficient stage or the illuminative stage, the focus is on the practice of virtues, which is positive. Doing this and that, also enlightenment of the mind in the ways of God, and there is a clear understanding of God's will. This is the illuminative stage. So the last stage is called the unitive or perfect stage. Here, the soul is focused simply on enjoying God. The person is constant awareness in God's presence, and there is habitual disposition of conformity to the will of God. We must also mention here that there is no distinct border between these three stages, and one doesn't really know whether that oneself is in this particular stage or has already gone to the next stage. There is also no specific time period for each of these stages, and it may differ from one person to another. So one person may last years in a particular stage, while the other person may last only a short as a few months to many months. But every person has a different time period. So let's go back to purgative. So purgative, as mentioned earlier, these are the first three mansions in the interior castle of Saint Teresa of Avila. In the first mansion, we have the faithful soul. So in the first mansion, which is the um, faithful souls, other than what we have mentioned earlier, there is also awareness of sins. There is sorrow for the past, and the person is avoiding mortal sin. And yet, this person does not avoid venial sin. The person is committing venial sin, and only the mortal sins are being avoided. With regards to the prayer, they are purely vocal prayers with many distractions during prayer period, and the person is less interested in spiritual things. So there are a lot of people here in the first mansion. In the second mansion, they are called good souls. Other than what is mentioned earlier, let us also add that the person goes to confession, and the person commit deliberate venial sin. So the person still commits deliberate venial sin, is unable to avoid venial sins yet. The person may attend daily mass but omit devotions and rosary. The person does not uh, do rosaries and also tries meditation prayer. The person is trying to grow and tries meditation. This is the good souls. In the purgative stage of the third mansion, these souls are called pious souls. They rarely commit mortal sins and confess immediately when one falls into mortal sin. The pious souls take precautions and avoid all venial sins now. So, venial sins are already avoided here in pious souls. The person attend daily mass but only as a routine. Often make examination of conscience and make meditations but are distracted easily. Here, the person needs mortification, fasting in order to move up to the next mansion. So we have just finished the first three mansions, and what is next is the person experiences a night of the senses before entering the fourth mansion. So what does the person experiences in the night of the senses? The person undergoes passive purification. Passive means that it is not of his or her own doing. Here, also in the night of the senses, God weans the person from creatures and from self-love. So, God takes away the pleasures of the senses and leads them in darkness. Now, as the person goes through this night of the senses, self-love decreases, but as long as the person cooperates. So, this darkness is a feeling of dryness, spiritual dryness, and also experiences pain, and also is tempted to decrease prayer time. So there's a temptation to decrease prayer time, but there is also already a detachment from the seven deadly sins. Now God slowly, intermittently removes consolation in the night of the senses. So the person needs to meditate, to do spiritual reading and contemplation. At the end, the result will be an increase in humility and being merciful. There's also an increase in love of God and neighbor. Now, as long as the person remains faithful to God and love God, the person will progress to the next stage called illuminative way. Now, this night of the senses may last as short as 5 years, or it may last as long as 20 years. So we are now in the fourth mansion, and fourth, fifth, and sixth mansion. Now, fourth and fifth mansions belong to the illuminative way, illuminative stage. So the fourth mansion, the souls are called fervent souls. They are described as a second conversion after the night of the senses. So when the person reaches this, when the soul reaches this stage, they stop committing mortal sins. They never commit mortal sins. There's a great effort to avoid venial sin. And also, there's also a love for self-denial. And there is fervent preparation for Holy Mass and devotions. So the person really prepares before going to Mass. Also, the person seeks spiritual direction. The person has a tender devotion to Mary, and they are faithful in their prayer life. They are called fervent souls. So they are already in the fourth mansion, illuminative stage. The person progressed to the fifth mansion. Still in the illuminative stage, this person, these souls are already called relatively perfect. They never commit a deliberate venial sin. So if ever they commit venial sins, it would be unintentional, but they never commit deliberate venial sins. They also make reparations for their past sins, uh, simple piety acts, but practiced with greater love. Here, the thoughts and actions are influenced by love of God. The person loves solitude, and the person is longing for God and heaven. There is great hunger for communion, and the prayer becomes natural as breathing. These are the characteristics already of a relatively perfect soul. So, we have just discussed mansion number 5. We are now entering the unitive stage, but this is the sixth mansion, the heroic souls. And let's go. In unitive stage, the sixth mansion, these souls are already called heroic souls. So, other than what we have already mentioned earlier, we may add that these souls are faithful to all its practices of piety. The soul is concerned with only with being united with God. There is already forgetfulness of self, thirst for suffering, and offer themselves as victims souls, meaning they would offer themselves instead of, if they see someone suffering, they would ask God to give them that suffering. Or if they want to save many souls, they would offer themselves as sacrifice to God so that the person or the souls may be saved. And also, these souls have extraordinary penances and praying for hours. So we are in this sixth mansion. They are called heroic souls. Now, before the soul enters the seventh and last mansion, the person experiences a night of the spirit. The night of the spirit. What is this night of the spirit? In the night of the spirit, only the most heroic souls reach here. The defects of the souls are uncovered. They manifest to the soul its smallest defects. Soul feels it is impossible to be united with God and thus feel grief and pain. There is much anguish and torture similar to that of hell. So this is the feeling of grief and pain. And God comforts the soul and prevents it from despair. The soul becomes purified and beautiful, passing through the night of the spirit. The person or the soul awaits only death before heaven and will last years before moving upward. So this is the night of the spirit where the person in mansion 6 experiences before progressing to mansion number 7. We are now in the last mansion, part of the unitive stage. And the seventh mansion, these souls are called great saints. Okay, let's add to what we have mentioned earlier. The great saints have practices of piety. They are transformed to simple acts of love. The person manifests profound humility, and love has reached a point of incredible intensity. Love of God. Unity of judgment and simplicity of intention. Prayer life have reached intellectual vision of the Holy Trinity, and the person has reached mystical marriage and transforming union. Okay, let's go back to our imagery, the imagery that is used by Saint Teresa of Avila, which is the interior castle, and we have the 7 mansions. And in this imagery, he placed God in the center, which is the interior castle, while the world is in the exterior of the castle. Now, she also describes that the um, inner castle is the sanctuary of God, or the inmost part of the soul. This is where you will know your true self in this sanctuary of God. As you journey towards this inmost part of your soul, this is where you will know your true self. When you are outside in the exterior castle, all you have there is your false self. This is at the outside of the castle where the world is located. This is your false self, meaning that God did not intend you to be there. God created you to be with Him in the interior castle, where that is where your true self is, in the interior castle, not in the exterior castle. So if you stay in the exterior castle, that would be your false self. Sadly, many seek happiness outside in the exterior castle, and they don't realize it that they are in their false self. Now that happens because they over identify with their earthly roles, and so they think that the purpose of their life is their earthly roles, but that is not the case. God, everybody, all of us are called to be saints, and when we are called to be saints, God wants us here in the interior castle. That is our final and ultimate vocation. God is calling everybody to come and journey to the inner castle. We are now in our last slide, and we just like to mention that Saint Teresa of Avila also gave her teachings about these 9 grades of prayer. So it is divided into two. The first four are called ascetical prayers. They are more of human effort. The most basic is the vocal prayer, and the highest that you can reach here is grade 4. With your own best effort, the highest would be prayer of simplicity. Now, as you move up to grade 5 and grade 6, 7, 8, 9, this uh, group is called mystical prayer. And you cannot reach this mystical prayer without the help of God. So God is helping you and pulling you up, so you'll be able to reach grade 5 and go up further. The highest in this group is called Prayer of Transforming Union. This is already grade 9. Now, why grade 9 and why not grade 10? Because a person reaches only grade 10 when the person experiences already the beatific vision, when you see God face to face. And that only happens in heaven. So the highest grade that you can get here on earth while still alive is grade 9, which is the prayer of transforming union. If you like more about this topic of the 9 grades of prayer, please take a look at the YouTube lecture that we made in our channel, Theology Explained for Beginners. We have 3 parts of prayer lecture about these 9 grades. Prayer part 1 all the way to prayer part 3. So if you have other more questions, kindly visit our YouTube channel. We have lots of topic there for beginners. Theology Explained for Beginners. Thank you very much.